The Constitution of India, Preamble. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution.
Students, hope you all are doing good, safe in your house, and you all will be really busy, especially girls, as the Onam celebrations have started, and being with your family together, spending productive time, that always sounds good. So here I'm going to begin the class with a small story for you, which might be thought-provoking for you. The story begins like this. There was a father who was reading the newspaper, and when he was reading the newspaper, his 5-year-old girl, she came running to the father and asked for the paper. The father was not quite interested. He said, "No, please go away." Then this girl started asking the father to play with her. The father's response was again no. But this girl was not happy. She was continuously pestering her father to play with her. The father, after all patience, he started getting angry, and what he did was, when he turned the pages of the newspaper, there was a column with the world map. He took that paper out and he just made into few pieces and he gave to the girl. And he said, "You solve this puzzle. If you solve this puzzle properly, I will play with you." And he was very sure that since it was his child, she will not be able to do it. But the girl took those pieces, and within 5 minutes she was able to solve the puzzle. A 5-year-old girl was able to solve the puzzle, and she came running to her father and said, "Yes, Dad, I have done this." The father was surprised how come she could do this, and seeing her father's reaction, the daughter said, "I know you will be surprised. I don't know where is America, where is New Zealand, where is Australia, but I know where is a man's eyes, where are his ears, where is his mouth, and other things. Because behind this world map, I saw a man's face." So the girl said, "I made the man right, the world became right." So with this, I just want to tell you, children, you be the change what you expect in the world to be. Do one to others what you expect others to do it for you. When you start believing in yourself, when you change your own attitude to know what is good and what is bad, you will be the best person and the happiest person in the world. Okay? So with this, let us begin today's class. Before getting into today's class, we have learned about few things in last class, and I was so happy that you all could write the homework and send it to me, and there are few more children who have not sent the homework problems, and I hope you are able to understand and you could do it properly. I just want to remind you only one thing. When you are solving the problems, make sure that you mention the units, because units carry marks. You solve the entire problem and you write the answer without writing the unit, children, you will be losing marks. So units are very important as of calculations are concerned, unless and until it is a constant. If the answer is a constant, you don't have to mention the unit. Otherwise, it is definitely important that you mention the unit, because I saw some of you for the EMF you haven't mentioned volt. It is very important, children. So remember that when you are doing the problems. And if some children have still not given the problems to me, send through WhatsApp. And if you find it difficult, please call me, children, so I can help you out. Okay. So last class we were learning about Gibbs free energy and also about equilibrium constant, and you were able to do the problems. I'm so happy with that. So let us move into today's topic. Our topic for today is conductance of electrolytic solutions. Before getting into conductance of electrolytic solutions, there are few terms which we need to learn in this class. What are those important terms is, children, we know when we are walking on the road, we are able to walk properly because there is a friction between our shoes or the slippers and the ground. And if the friction is very less, we may fall. So there is a proper frictional force that is binding us to walk on the road properly. Now that force we call it as a resistance, which allows us to walk properly. You would have studied in physics about frictional forces. Now something that deals with electricity, we call it as electrical resistance. You assume there is a substance that is allowing the electricity to pass through it, but there is an opposing force which does not allow the electricity to continue throughout. Such a force we call it as electrical resistance, which acts in the opposite direction of the force of current. So such force we call it as electric resistance, and it is denoted by capital R. It is denoted by capital R. And what is its unit? Its unit is ohm. That is OHM, and you use a symbol like this. It's a Greek symbol which you mention like this. Now this resistance depends on two important factors. They are the length of the substance and its area of cross section. I repeat, the resistance depends on the length of the substance and its cross sectional area. So R is proportional to L by A, which means R is directly proportional to L, that is the length, and inversely proportional to area of cross section. That is, the more thick the area, the less will be the resistance. Or when I say in terms of length, the greater the length, the higher will be the resistance. The shorter the length, the less will be the resistance. So when I say R is proportional to L by A, to remove this proportionality, I introduce a constant rho, which you call it as R is equal to rho into L by A. Now L is the length, A is the area, and rho is the resistivity, also called as specific resistance. So this is called as resistivity, that is a constant, or specific resistance. Now imagine I have a wire, a 1 meter wire which is long and one is very thick. So the thicker wire will have more area. So thicker wire which is having more area will definitely have less resistance. That's why we say it is inversely proportional. Now we've learned about resistance, and in physics I think you also would have learned how to measure the resistance using the Wheatstone bridge. So in chemistry we will not go deep into its calculation, but we have certain experiments to do it. So which we'll be following after this. So once we learned about resistance, something which is called as resistivity. What is resistivity? Resistivity will be denoted by the symbol rho, and its unit is ohm meter, or in terms of centimeter we can write ohm centimeter. So what is from this formula only you can calculate what is resistivity. Rho is equal to R into A by L, which means the resistance of a 1 meter wire having 1 meter square area of cross section. That is called as a specific resistance, or you call it as resistivity. Why do we say specific resistance? Which means every substance will have its own resistance. That's why we call it as specific resistance. Specific means for its own credibility. So every substance will not have the same resistance value. It will differ on its own. So in chemistry, we don't use specific resistance term. Instead, we use resistivity. Now, once we learned about resistance and resistivity, we are getting into the most important term for this topic, this lesson, which is called as conductance. See, you would have heard this word conductor, conductance, conducting. So conductance means, when I said resistance is the opposite force, what is conductance? It is a flow of current. The force which allows the flow of current to pass through a substance is called as conductance. So definitely conductance should be the reciprocal, or I should say inverse of resistance. So conductance is the inverse of resistance. So unit is also something magical, which we will see OHM. It is ohm for resistance, which comes as MHO, mho for conductance. Though it looks funny, here we call it as ohm, but here we call it as mho. So when I say inverse of resistance, we put it as ohm with an inverse sign. In maths you used to do 1 inverse, 2 inverse. So like that it becomes ohm inverse. Now which letter is used for conductance? We denote with a letter G. So G is equal to 1 by R. So what is R here? R is equal to rho into L by A. If it is 1 by R, it becomes A by rho into L. Okay. Now what do we do is, we introduce 1 by rho as K, which we call it as kappa. So to remove this resistivity, because now no more we are dealing with resistance, we are learning about conductance. So to remove this resistivity, we are introducing a new term kappa, which is called as conductivity. So G will be equal to K into A by L. So when I say the opposite of resistance, in resistance we told it is directly proportional to length, inversely proportional to area. Here conductance becomes directly proportional to area and inversely proportional to length. So we write G is equal to K into A by L. So what is K here? Conductivity, which is equal to 1 by rho, which is again inverse of resistivity. As conductance is an inverse of resistance, conductivity becomes inverse of resistivity. So now what is conductivity here? Now we are going to see kappa, which is also called as specific conductance. But in chemistry, rather than using specific conductance, we use the term conductivity. Now conductivity is K. It is ohm inverse meter inverse, or in terms of centimeter you can write ohm inverse centimeter inverse. Ohm can also be mentioned as Siemens. So Siemens meter inverse or Siemens centimeter inverse. Now we know what is the normal conversion for meter into centimeter or decimeter, which you have already learnt in maths, or you would have already learnt in the 11th standard, first chapter, significant figures, how to convert, or decimals, right? So those significant figures will also be useful for you. So these are the basic things as of electrical resistance, resistivity, conductance and conductivity. Now we will be learning about the magnitude of electrical conductance. For that you have a table which is in front of you, which will be helping you to know more about the comparison of different electrolytic solutions and their conducting values. So children, now you can look at the table and understand better. Now in front of you can see table 3.2 displayed on your page, which shows the different conductivity values of different substances. Those are like conductors, insulators, semiconductors, and also you can see for pure water and also for water with an acidic or basic solution, that is when an electrolyte is added to it. If you see children, if you compare the values, you can see the factors that are depending on the magnitude of the electrical conductivity. That is, the value of the electrical conductivity depends on basic 3 important factors. One is the nature of the material, next we have temperature, and then we have pressure. So these 3 are the important factors on which the magnitude of electrical conductivity depends on. And if I want to tell you, if you see the value for pure water and you compare it with sodium chloride in water or HCl or any solution of water, pure water conducts electricity to to a less extent, it is just because water can ionize as only H plus and OH minus ions. But if you see, if I am going to add a salt, say let us assume a common salt of sodium chloride into water. Sodium chloride, when it gets dissolved in water, it immediately dissociates into Na plus and Cl minus ions. That is a cation and an anion. So when it gets dissolved in water, it immediately breaks into a cation and anion. Those ions will be the charge carriers, that is they carry the current. That's how the bulb glows, or you can say the conduction of electricity takes place. That's why if you see, pure water has less conductivity compared to that of ionic water. That is when I am going to add any salt into it. But salts can be weaker or a stronger electrolyte. That is what we have learnt in the previous classes. So see the table. Now you will be getting a video to learn about the electrical conductivity of water. So please understand the video, what happens with the electrical conductivity of water.
Water will frequently contain dissolved ions. Because these ions have a charge, they will produce an electrical current as they move. The conductivity of water is affected by the presence of inorganic dissolved substances. These substances will separate into either negatively charged ions such as chloride, nitrate, sulfate or phosphate, or positively charged ions such as sodium, magnesium, calcium, iron, and aluminum. Let's look at the electrical conductivity of some different types of water to better understand the effect these inorganic substances have. We will begin by filling a beaker with ordinary unfiltered tap water. Next, we will insert 2 carbon rods for our electrodes into the beaker, connecting one of the rods to a battery and one to a bulb. To this circuit, we will add a switch. After turning on the switch, the bulb will glow. Tap water has dissolved salts in it, which will separate into ions and conduct electricity. Using a second setup, let's fill another beaker, only this time we will use distilled water. Once again, we'll arrange the electrodes and switch it on. This time, the bulb will glow more faintly. Because distilled water is water that has been boiled and the steam condensed, the salts will be almost, though not totally, absent. Therefore, the distilled water will conduct only a little bit of electricity. In a third setup, let's once again fill a beaker with tap water, then add ordinary table salt and repeat the experiment. This time, the bulb will glow much more brightly because the water now contains salts which readily separate into ions. The water's conductivity will increase. Absolutely pure water that contains no dissolved substances will not conduct electricity. Water's conductivity is also affected by temperature. As the temperature of the water increases, its conductivity will increase accordingly. Summary: conductivity is the ability of a solution to carry an electrical current. Impurities in water will separate into positive and negative ions that conduct electrical currents. Absolute pure water will not conduct electricity.
Children, hope you would have watched the video. You would have understood how the conductivity depends on the ions that are present in the water to pass the electric current successfully. Now, we are going to see about an important thing here, which is the classification of conductors, insulators, semiconductors and superconductors. If you see, we have already learned in the last classes, that is the second chapter and all, about conductors, insulators, semiconductors and superconductors. Is a new term for us. Conductors are those which allow the electric current to pass through it. The best examples are, we can say, metals or their alloys. When I say conductors, they conduct electricity. They allow the electric current to pass through them. So in metals, what will be the electron, that is the electricity carriers? These are our electrons. The electrons are the carriers of current. They carry the current throughout and they allow the electricity to pass through them. But what happens in case of metals is, it decreases, that is any conductor's conductivity, especially in case of metal, decreases with increase in temperature. Why it is happening? When you start increasing the temperature, what will happen to the molecules that are present inside? The molecules will start vibrate. The more the vibration starts happening, what happens? There will not be the proper movement of electrons to move around, right? They get disturbed. They will not be able to move properly. So the electricity may not be carried properly through a successful path. Now imagine I am in a room and I am just walking or I am running. What happens when the ball starts bouncing? Imagine when the balls are bouncing very slowly, I will be able to run. But the moment the bouncing forces of the balls or it becomes too high or too fast, it restricts, it does not allow me to run successfully, right? It will not allow me to pass peacefully. Same thing happens here. Because of the continuous vibration of the molecules, there will be more resistance instead of conductance. So as the temperature increases, the number of molecules that vibrates becomes more, so that increases the resistance, and because of the increase in resistance, definitely the conductivity becomes less. So that comes in case of conductors. Next we have insulators. Now insulators, we know they do not allow the electricity to pass through them. Example like glass, wood or any substance which restricts or stop the flow of current to pass through them. Then we have semiconductors, especially in the last class we have learned chapter, that is semiconductors are those which lies in between a conductor and an insulator. It is neither a good conductor, it is neither a good insulator. So those values lie in between those of a conductor and insulator. Now we also learned that doping of the 14th group elements will definitely increase the conductivity. The process of adding impurities, if you can recollect children. So what happens there is, when it is doped with 13th or 15th group element, the conductivity becomes more. Now superconductors is a new term which we are learning this year. Superconductors are those which has got zero resistivity. Absolutely resistance is zero. So because of that, they have the highest conductivity. Now can you imagine a situation where there can be a zero resistance? So scientists, after so many experiments, they found out that there were certain metals which had zero resistivity at around 0 to 15 Kelvin, which is exactly minus of temperatures. So what happens at that temperature factor, there will be zero resistivity, which are called as superconductors. But later on what happened, providing such a situation was not so easy for us. So because of the man-made comfort, they also made sure that there are materials or there are ceramics which are mixed with metals can behave as superconductors even at a temperature of 150 Kelvin. So that is a quite decent temperature which is possible for us, because 0 to 15 Kelvin and all, if you can imagine, it is not very easy to put such a setup for us, right, to create a superconductor. So later on, after doing several experiments, they came to know that with 150 Kelvin also, it is possible for certain alloys or metals or ceramics to behave as superconductors. So these are the basic classifications. Now you will be again watching a video to know the conductivity taking place in the metals, or how does the electricity pass through the wire.
Conduction of electricity. Conduction of electricity is the movement of electrically charged particles through a medium called conductor. Materials having free electrons in their atom and the ability to allow an electrical current to flow through them are known as conductors. Let's look at a copper wire, the most common electrical conductor. A copper atom has 29 protons within its nucleus and 29 electrons which orbit that nucleus. The outermost shell, also referred to as the valence shell, will hold only one electron, a valence electron. Because this valence electron is only loosely bonded to the nucleus of an atom, it can move away from the parent atom when sufficient energy is gained or lost. When an outside force from something such as a battery is applied to the metal, these randomly moving electrons will become oriented in a particular direction, flowing from the battery's negative terminal to its positive. This is how an electrical flow will be conducted in a conductor. Liquids also conduct electricity. Water, for example, generally will have inorganic dissolved substances in it. These substances will dissociate into either negatively charged ions, such as chloride, nitrate, sulfate, or phosphate, or positively charged ions, such as sodium, magnesium, calcium, iron, and aluminium. Let's look at the electrical conductivity of water. We will begin by filling a beaker with ordinary unfiltered tap water. Next, we will insert 2 carbon rods for our electrodes into the beaker, connecting one of the rods to a battery and one to a bulb. To this circuit, we will add a switch. After turning on the switch, the bulb will glow. Tap water has dissolved salts in it, which will separate into ions and conduct electricity. Absolutely pure water that contains no dissolved substances will not conduct electricity. Summary. Conductivity is the ability of a substance to carry an electrical current. In solids, the free electrons will help in conducting electricity. In liquids, dissolved inorganic substances will dissociate into positive and negative ions that conduct electrical currents.
I hope you watched the video of conductivity in metals and also in solutions, how the ions are produced and how they really conduct the electricity. Now we are going to learn something about metallic conductance and electrolytic conductance. Now what are metallic conductance? From the name it is very clear that conductance in metals. When I say metallic conductance or electrolytic conductance, what happens there is the electrons are the charge carriers. The electrons, they carry the electric current throughout the substance. Now there are 3 important factors on which the metallic conductance depends on. The first one is nature and structure of metal. When I say nature and structure of metal, if you recollect the table which we saw, it depends on whether it's an conductor or it's an insulator or it's a semiconductor or it is a superconductor. So that shows whether it is a conductor or insulator. That's why we say nature and structure. That is, some can be a good conductor, some can be a bad conductor, or some can be a moderate conductor as well. The second important factor is the number of valence electron. What do you mean by number of valence electron? We know these metals in a substance, they form a metallic lattice. What is lattice? We have learned in the first chapter, arrangement of atoms in a structured way, in an orderly manner, right? Crystalline structure or a lattice structure. So imagine this is an arrangement of metals, and when this metal, when it loses an electron, what happens? It becomes positive. So the metal atom gains a positive charge, but there will be a free electron which will be swimming in the lattice structure. So imagine if there is only one electron, only that electron will go around the entire lattice, because everywhere it is a positive metal atom, because we know nucleus is positive. So that will be swimming across the whole lattice structure. Now imagine if each metal atom loses one electron, there will be a lot of electrons which will be inside this crystal lattice, where there can be an attraction between an electron and a positive metal atom, or there can be a repulsion between the electron and electron as both are negatively charged. So there can be an attraction because this is positive and electron is negative, or there can be a repulsion because electrons and electrons are like charges. So this is a situation. Imagine you have a billiards board. You know what is a billiard, right? You have a billiard board and you have been given a stick to hit a ball. Now the ball which you hit, if it hits only one ball, if it's going to hit only one ball, all the energy given by you through the stick will be reaching only that ball, right? The energy given by the stick on this ball will completely get transferred to only one ball which is being hit. Or if you're going to hit the ball in such a way that that ball hits 3-4 other balls on the board, so what happens? The energy gets scattered, or we can say the whole energy gets transferred to 3-4 balls, right? Same thing happens here. If the metal has only one valence electron or less valence electron, there will be a complete energy taken, electricity that will be transferred here. There are more number of valence electrons, then that will not be a benefit factor for us. So the conductivity can decrease, right? The last factor is the temperature. As we have already discussed, when temperature becomes more, there will be more molecules which will be vibrating. Those vibrating molecules will cause more resistance, and that will decrease the conductivity of the substance, right? So less temperature should be there. There will be less number of valence electrons, and of course nature and structure depends on whichever metal we are handling with. So these are the metallic conductance. What is the next topic? It is ionic or electrolyte. What do you mean by ionic conductance? Ionic solutions or electrolytes. We have learned about electrolytes. Those can be acids, it can be bases, or it can be salts also, which can dissociate or produce ions like cations and anions in the solutions. So those are called as ionic conductance. There the electrons do not carry the charge or the current. Instead the ions, it can be a positive ion or the negative ion, which will be carrying the electricity. Now what are the factors on which they depend on? We have nature of electrolyte. Nature of electrolyte, when I say, it can be a strong electrolyte or it can be a weak electrolyte. So that we'll be seeing through a video again. Next comes the size of the ions produced. Size of the ions produced means after dissolving in the solutions, if the size becomes more or it is becoming less, that will affect the ionic conductivity. Or you can also say solvation. What do you mean by solvation? The interaction of the solute with the solvent. The solute-solvent interaction is called as solvation. The third factor is the nature of the solvent. That is, the solvent is the more amount in which you dissolve a solute, right? The next one is concentration. Concentration, again, it can be a dilute one or it can be a concentrated one. And the last one is the temperature. Whether increase or decrease in temperature will favor ionic conductivity. Now you will see a video which will be helping you to make you understand each and every point very clearly. Take down the points wherever it is necessary. then I'll get back to you.
Affecting electrolytic conductance. In this module, you will learn about the factors that affect electrolytic conductance. The conductivity of an electrolytic solution depends on factors like the nature of the electrolyte and the solvent, size of the ions produced and their solvation, concentration of the electrolytic solution, and temperature. Let us learn about each factor in detail. Let us consider the example of a strong electrolyte like sodium chloride and a weak electrolyte like ammonium hydroxide to understand the effects of the nature of the electrolyte on electrolytic conductance. Consider two beakers, one with sodium chloride and another with ammonium hydroxide. Both electrolytes have the same concentration. We observe that sodium chloride molecules dissociate almost completely, producing many sodium and chloride ions. This makes more ions available to conduct electricity. As a result, the aqueous sodium chloride shows greater conductance. On the other hand, fewer ammonium hydroxide molecules dissociate to form ammonium and hydroxide ions. As a result, fewer ions are available for electric conductance, and thus the aqueous ammonium hydroxide shows lesser conductance than the aqueous sodium chloride. Therefore, the greater the dissociation of the electrolyte, the greater is the number of ions produced in the solution, and hence greater is the electrolytic conductance. Now, we shall examine how the nature of the solvent affects electrolytic conductance. Take two beakers. In the first beaker, dissolve sodium chloride in water, which is a highly polar solvent. In the second beaker, dissolve sodium chloride in a less polar solvent like methanol. Due to the high polarity of water, sodium chloride produces more ions when dissolved in it. This results in greater conductance. On the other hand, due to the low polarity of methanol, sodium chloride, when dissolved in it, will produce a lesser number of ions. This results in lower conductance. Thus, we see that greater polarity of the solvent results in more ions being produced, which in turn results in greater electrolytic conductance. Another factor that affects electrolytic conductance is the effective size of the ions produced and their solvation in the solution. Let us take an aqueous sodium chloride solution in beaker 1 and an aqueous sodium nitrate solution in beaker 2. In beaker 1, sodium chloride will dissociate to form sodium and chloride ions. As the solubility of sodium chloride in water is low, the number of water modules that surround sodium and chloride ions are also low. Therefore, the effective size of the ions is less, resulting in greater conductance due to greater mobility of the ions. In beaker 2, sodium nitrate dissociates. Since the solubility of sodium nitrate in water is high, there will be more water molecules surrounding sodium and nitrate ions. This causes an effective increase in the size of the ions. The increase in the size of ions reduces the mobility of the ions in the solution. This results in a decrease in the electrolytic conductance. Thus, the greater the solubility, the larger the effective size of the ion and lesser the electrolytic conductance. The concentration of the electrolytic solution also affects electrolytic conductance. Let us take concentrated aqueous sodium chloride in beaker 1 and dilute aqueous sodium chloride in beaker 2. In the concentrated aqueous sodium chloride solution, there are many more sodium and chloride ions. The ions are very close to each other and so have limited mobility. This results in lower conductance. In the dilute sodium chloride solution, there are few sodium and chloride ions formed in the solution, and so there is more space to move. This results in the free movement of ions and hence greater electrolytic conductance. Therefore, lesser concentration of an electrolytic solution leads to more electrolytic conductance. Electrolytic conductance also depends on the temperature. With the increase in temperature of an electrolyte, the mobility of the ions in the solution also increases. This results in an increase in the conductivity. Therefore, an increase in the temperature increases electrolytic conductance.
Yes, children, I think you got an idea about the factors affecting the ionic conductance. Very important those factors are, and it's a definite question for the board exam as well. The factors which influence the conductivity of ions. They may not ask you the whole factors, but they may ask you separately. So learn, because in the video they have explained all the factors with certain examples. So when you are writing in the notebook, make sure that you write each factor with an example. So I hope today's topic is very clear for you. And what I want to tell you is, since we missed a few classes during our online interview exams and other things, what we have planned is we will be making the video as of whenever is possible and will be posting it. And I'll be sending you the link as well personally when the chemistry video is getting uploaded. Make sure that you watch the videos continuously, because it may not be on Tuesday. Whenever it is there, I'll be sending you the link. So do not get hurried. You will not be missing it. It will be there in the Disney channel only, and which will help you to watch properly in a continuous manner. Okay. So with this, we'll stop the class for today, and we will continue the next topic, that is measuring the conductivity in an electrolytic solutions, in the next class. Thank you, children. Stay healthy, stay safe. Take care. Bye.